Imam, we're ready to go.
Yeah, okay. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum. I extend to you the same greeting which was extended to Brenton Harrison, who at Al-Noor Mosque, a greeting which once extended ensures the safety and security of the addressee. A message which embodies the importance of peace and love in Islam. And this importance of peace and love in Islam is a mission which is a key tenet of the Islamic faith. And we are gathered here to remember and ponder over the Christchurch massacre, an event which shocked the world to its core. However, thoughts and prayers are not enough. This attack was a manifestation of a growing and globalized ideology of right-wing nationalism that must be addressed at its source, which includes mainstream politicians, media personalities, and so on and so forth, who nurture, promotes, and excuses it. We are here to address this, but also to celebrate the memories of the martyrs of that day. But perhaps more importantly, we are all here to remind ourselves that no matter the perils and the hardship and the opposition, we will never ever succumb to hatred. Rather, we will carry on saying, Assalamu alaikum, or peace be upon you, to whomsoever we cross paths with. Without further ado, I would like to request our brother Anas to start with a recitation of the Qur'an, and after which we will do the names of the martyrs to remember them but through their names.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فاذكروني أذكركم واشكروني ولا تكفرون. So Allah says in the Quran, so remember me and I will remember you, and be grateful to me and do not deny me. يا أيها الذين آمنوا استعينوا بالصبر والصلاة إن الله مع الصابرين. O you who have believed, seek help through patience and prayer. Indeed, Allah is with the patient ones. إن الله مع الصابرين ولا تقولوا لمن يقتل في سبيل الله أموات بل أحياء ولكن لا تشعرون. And do not say those who are killed in the path of Allah, they are dead, rather they are alive, but you shall perceive it not. وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ وَنَقْصٍ مِّنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. And we will surely test you with something of fear and hunger and a loss of wealth and lives and fruits, but give glad tidings to the patients. الذين إذا أصابتهم مصيبة قالوا إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. Who when disaster strikes them, they say, indeed we belong to Allah, and indeed to him we will return. أولئك عليهم صلوات من ربهم ورحمة وأولئك هم المهتدون. Those are the ones upon whom are blessings from their Lord and mercy, and in it. So, and it is those who are the rightly guided. So I shall be remembering the name. I shall be calling out those who passed away in this tragic incident. So it's something that we can remember them and pray for them. And each and every one of them has a story. And later on, towards the evening, we shall be hearing from a family member of one who has passed away. So Abdul Qadir Elmi, Abdul Fattah Qasim, Ahmed Abdul Ghani, Ali Al Madani, Amjad Hamid, Ansi Ali Bava, Ashraf Ali, Ashraf Al Misri, Ashraf Mursi, Asif Vora, Ata Al Ayan, Dawood Nabi, Farhaj Ahsan, Ghulam Hussein, Hafiz Musa Vali Patel, Hamza Mustafa, Harun Mahmoud, Husni Ahmed, Hussein Al Umari, Hussein Mustafa, Junaid Kara Ismail, Kamil Muhammad, Karam Bibi, Khalid Mustafa, Linda Armstrong, Mahbub Kokar, Matiullah Safi, Muhammad Imran Khan, Umar Farooq, Muhsin Muhammad Al Harbi, Muzammil Haq, Munir Sulaiman, Mukad Ibrahim, Lilik Abdul Hamid, Abdul Samad, Musa Noor Awali, Naeem Rashid, Osama Adnan Abu Qaik, Uzair Qadir, Ramiz Vora, Sayyid Muni, Suhail Shahid, Sayyid Arib Ahmed, Sayyid Jahandad Ali, Talha Rashid, Tariq Umar, Zakaria Buya, and Zishan Raza.
You're muted. You're muted. Anas, sorry, you're muted. Anas. Apologies. Anas, can you start from Muhammad Haq Haziq bin? The last three
Muhammad. Okay, Muhammad Haziq bin Muhammad Talmizi, Muhammad Musi, Muhammad Hussein, Zakaria Tuyan.
Thank you very much. May Allah have mercy upon all of them, and may Allah reunite them together with their family. This is evidently a very difficult and very traumatic experience. It was traumatic for the whole Muslim community as a whole, and for everybody else who's involved. So without further ado, I would like to request Chaplain Sidra Naeem to come and speak in regards to the trauma, the ummah, and healing. Sister Sidra Naeem is the chaplain at East Anglia University, and she will be discussing trauma, the ummah, which is the Muslim community, and healing. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much for inviting me to this very important event. I think that like other atrocities around the world are remembered every year, I think it's equally as important that we do this as well every year. So thank you very much for coming. There's three parts to my talk. So first of all, I'm going to give a little bit of background to what actually happened. My second part then is a PowerPoint on how we can remedify the problems in society today. And then the last part, I've got a little poem. So I will try my best to stick to the time that I have been given. So I would like to thank you all for coming and standing together in demonstrating peace and solidarity with us. This speech is in relation to the New Zealand terror attacks at 2 mosques during prayers on Friday, 15th March 2019. We witnessed the horrific Islamophobic terrorist attacks that took place in New Zealand. This event proved that terrorism has no religion. 51 people were murdered in acts of far-right terrorism in 2 mosques in Christchurch. These atrocities are a reminder of the global consequences of far-right extremism. Islamophobia and hatred, which leave innocent individuals feeling vulnerable to violence. This was the most Islamophobic terrorist attack we've witnessed in recent times. The perpetrator, Brenton Tarrant, was an extremist, right-wing violent terrorist. His murderous intention was to target Muslims at their places of worship on their sacred day. He was known to be spreading hate against Muslims and other minority communities, publishing a 70-page document promoting extremism and racism. How ironic, since he was an Australian immigrant committing these violent acts in New Zealand. We need to also remember that both Australia and New Zealand were colonized by the British less than 250 years ago. Sadly, terrorist attacks against Muslims are not new. In 2017, there was a shooting at a mosque in Quebec. In USA, a mosque was firebombed. In the UK, 2 mosques in Newcastle and Manchester were attacked by vandals. The Finsbury Mosque attacker was given a life sentence for intentionally driving into a crowd of worshippers exiting the mosque. That year, the Home Office reported religious hate crime increased by 40% across England and Wales, with 3/4 targeted at Muslims. Islamophobia and racism in the media and politics are largely driving these trends. During Brexit, there was a rise in far-right attacks against British Muslims and other minority communities. We also remember the murder of Joe Cox by Thomas Mair, who the judge, when sentencing him to life in prison, said he was motivated by an admiration for Nazis and similar anti-democratic white supremacist creeds. Our thoughts, prayers, and condolences are with those who lost their lives, were injured, and to all the families affected in the terrorist atrocity. We feel sadness for those who survived, as they will face living with the trauma for the rest of their lives. We deplore and condemn this inhumane taking of innocent lives. Let us stand together to oppose terrorism and the criminals that promote it. Let us also uphold and strengthen the unity of our society and work to ensure that it is a positive and harmonious one, where everyone can live safely and without fear. It is vital that we all work together to build bridges and positive relationships and to enable difficult issues to be resolved peacefully. We know that each time a terrorist attack occurs, certain groups within society become the target of verbal and physical abuse by those who mistakenly blame people for the actions of extremists. We must stand likewise against this. All of us bear a responsibility to go out of our way to build a common and peaceful society. We support the many people at this time in the country who are working for good community relations. So now I'm going to share my PowerPoint. So how do we solve all these problems? We need to reflect. So all mankind is from Adam, so we are all descendants from the same ancestor, making us brothers and sisters of one another. All messengers from Adam to the present day were all from different nations. Moses was from Egypt, Jesus spoke Aramaic, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was born in Arabia, and yet we happily follow all their religions. A lot of Christian saints that were elevated were also from different lands. Some were black, some were white. And in the Qur'an, in chapter 49, verse 13, it says that all mankind, we created you from a single soul, male and female, and made you into nations and tribes so that you may come to know one another. Truly the most noble of you in the sight of God is the most righteous of you. This implies there is no place for racism in Islam. Islam rejects certain individuals or nations being favored because of their wealth, power, or race. God created human beings as equals who are to be distinguished from each other only on the basis of their faith and piety. All aspects of humanity promote peace and justice. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, himself showed us many examples of this. He chose an African slave to give the call to the Muslim prayer, who was the poorest and darkest man amongst his companions. In Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him's last sermon, just before he passed away, he said, "O mankind, your God is one, and your forefather Adam is one. A white person is not better than a black person, and a black person is not better than a white person, except in piety." The fact that these were his last few words showed the importance of unity and peace. And this nation will not be fully free until all its citizens are free. Everyone ought to have the right to be treated as equals. We must stand together against all oppression. So to avoid all of this happening again in the world in the future, it is my passionate belief that we must promote interfaith dialogue. And this can be done in so many different ways. Integrating into the multicultural society that we are living in, I believe it is important to intermingle, respect, and learn about each other's faith and culture. People should come together and overcome differences and celebrate the similarities and shared values. This picture is actually something which I did, where everybody dressed up in their native costumes and each other's costumes. So we had a culture swap for the day. It was just great, great fun. This also can be achieved by organizing fun initiatives such as sports activities, which everybody enjoys. So this is actually a cricket match which I organized between Chelmsford Cathedral and a few other mosques. So absolutely amazing. And there are reverence in that picture there. And afterwards we shared everybody's food together. It was absolutely amazing. And we've been doing this for 6 years running. An interfaith quiz night, such great fun, where everybody joins in and learns about each other's faiths. And at the end, everybody gets certificates and trophies and medals. A brilliant, brilliant way of engaging and learning about each other's faiths. Our quizzes. And food. Who doesn't like food? Every religion, every culture likes food. This is a fast-breaking event where everybody was invited. Also, events such as this one that we're having today can develop good relations and cooperation and further cement strong friendships and alliances between our communities. I'm going to finish off now with a lovely poem, Our World, One World. Every morning on every news flash, I hear the sorrow of the world. Everybody's lost and scared, trying to make sense of it all. And as I travel to and fro, so many sad faces pass me by. I see lonely hearts living empty lives, just awaiting their time as they drone their way through day and night. In the evening on the TV news, I see images of war. I see brother killing brother with no consequence at all. And while those who claim to be leaders sell us tales of deceit, but God alone knows in their hearts what they reveal and conceal. And while we call ourselves civilized, we go on killing human lives, too caught up in our own web of lies. Such different people from different lands, we are all descendants of the first man. We can be one nation facing one God, with no hatred, no envy, no war. Created equal are you and I. So if you want a solution, my friend, seize this moment, this day before it ends. Oh, what a wonderful world this could be if we all opened our eyes to see. All that we need right now is to come together somewhere, somehow. I pray for our world and every child. I pray for our world to be filled with smiles, like the colors of a rainbow, not just black and white. I pray for our world to be filled with light. I pray for a brighter day to fight unhappiness away. I pray for all of us to choose the path that's right every day of our lives. And I'm just going to end with a very quick prayer in English. Oh Lord, help us all to live peacefully together, in spite of our differences in color, race, and religion, as we are all your creation. Let us unite all the people without war or injustice to create one happy world like you created in the beginning. Amen.
Ameen. Thank you so much, Sister Sidra. This was very inspiring. And one of the common points that we kept finding is irresponsible leadership. And I remember as the attack was unfolding, Donald Trump, who at the time you will remember, decided to tweet a link from Breitbart. And we have seen similar irresponsible and frankly crass leadership in the UK and abroad during Brexit, and certainly now during the current affairs. Rather than coming together, we have leaders calling for more divisiveness, excuse me. Hence, I'd like to welcome Canon and Easter to come and talk about compassion and leadership through adversity. Canon Easter was actually one of the first women to be ordained as a priest and a former chaplain to the Queen. So welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. It's lovely to be here. May the words of our mouths and the thoughts of our hearts and the works of our hands always be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. Our sister has already rehearsed the events of that terrible day 2 years ago. People who went to pray, a totally positive thing to do, to pray quietly, or maybe to rage at God, whatever, always positive. God hearing the prayers of those who pray. An evil person who considered one group and people better than another. And that lovely gentleman whose photograph we saw earlier on, Haji Dawood Nabi, greeted that man and said, "Hello, brother," as if he were a member of his family, which of course he was, part of the human family to which we all belong. That was before he was shot dead. And that horror was filmed and broadcast. What a ghastly use of modern technology. The leader of New Zealand at the time, Jacinda Ardern, still indeed the Prime Minister, herself an agnostic, responded promptly and intuitively. Later, she was asked about her response on that day, and she said, "I couldn't write. No words would come." But when she got there, she realised that people wanted reassurance. She hugged people. They wanted normality. She stood with them. Here in Newham, we've got a team of nearly 350,000 people trying to work together for the good of all. Jacinda described herself as a pragmatic idealist. I like that. That's a good description. Pragmatic, but an idealist too. A person who reaches for the stars, but realises that they're a long way away and it's going to take a while to get there. Idealistic and pragmatic. And I recognise that what we here try to promote, health, happiness, well-being, are intangibles. And yet we know that they're the things that matter, not things, of course. And they are translated into life experiences for us all. I wonder if you remember that lovely evening way back, that was in 2019 too, when a crowd of people, I think there were about 120, 130 of us, people of faith in Newham, got together, ate together, talked together, and decided more than anything else, what one person after another said to me was, "We want to work together. We want to learn more about each other and our faiths. and we want to enjoy each other's company. But COVID got in the way of that, I'm afraid. Our ambitious programme didn't even see the light of day, and it was all dashed. But do you know what happened? Actually, people just got on with it. They worked together. They gave out food and other necessities, and sometimes little treats too, because we all need a treat sometimes. The other things, the learning about each other's faith, the eating together, the enjoying each other's company, that will come soon, we hope. We now have our Forum of Faiths here in Newham, and soon we have our next meeting coming up. I think it's Wednesday week. Now, we know that leaders who have integrity read the public mood, and they do that by listening to people. They have both empathy, that is an understanding of how other people feel, and sympathy, that is they suffer with, they stand alongside. And we recognise and understand that those qualities, sympathy and empathy, transcend all our differences. The terrorist sees difference and wants to annihilate it. We see difference and want to respect it, embrace it, enjoy it, and connect with it. We know that definitely we are all made in the image of God. We're all drops of the same ocean, hurting together, healing together, hoping together. This past year, we've seen some marvellous, extraordinary acts of bravery, service, resilience and courage. But more than anything else, I believe, this year has taught us that love, grace and kindness can make even the worst of times less dark. As Martin Luther King said, most of us can't do great things, but we can do small things greatly. So today, on this anniversary, we commit ourselves afresh, my team, to make this world, God's world, our world, a better place, a place of healing, not hate. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anne, for these very, very powerful words. I do believe that Sergeant James Howarth would be joining us. Is that still the case, or are you there, sir?
Good evening, all. Hello, thank you. Thank you for asking me along this evening. First of all, apologies. My internet is playing up something rotten tonight, so I won't turn my camera on just in fear of it dropping out altogether. But yeah, thank you for asking me along tonight. I know that all the emergency services will be remembering and reflecting today on the terrible incidents that happened 2 years ago, and all praying that nothing like that ever happens again. For those of you who don't know me, I am James Howarth. I'm the sergeant for the Partnership and Prevention Team at North East Command, which in police speech is the London Borough of Newham and the London Borough of Waltham Forest. My team has a wide remit, and one of our main sort of purposes is to engage with the local community and prevent crime of all types. Hopefully you'll all know my faith officer for Newham, PC Rokhsana. He sends his apologies for this evening. He's otherwise engaged. But certainly from our perspective, Christchurch highlighted the need for that close relationship between the police, its communities and the places of worship. Within North East, we really value the work of the faith officers, what Rack and his counterpart for Waltham Forest do. they're critical to preventing incidents like Christchurch happening, and they're there to educate the community on the threats which unfortunately still exist. They work very closely with our colleagues in protective security and the counter-terrorism command, and in order to ensure that we are as well prepared as we can be to prevent atrocities like Christchurch happening. Also, part of their remit is to work with the local community and try to prepare the public for as best as possible should any sort of terrible incident like that occur in the future. From me and Rack and the guys, our sort of main plea would be, if you haven't looked at the Action Counters Terrorism Act website, then please have a look at it, because only by working together can we lower the risk of anything like Christchurch ever happening again. Finally, then I'd sort of like to say thank you once again for asking me along tonight. My team's here to protect you, just the local community, and we're there to help in any way, shape or form. So if you have any questions or you're in doubt in any way, then please get in contact with Rack or myself or any of my team. It's definitely better to be safe than sorry. And finally, I just wish you all well and to stay safe.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sir James Howarth. And just to echo in what Anne was saying, the fact that, you know, we can all be leaders. If we sympathize and emphasize with others, we are leaders. If we celebrate differences and understand that we are all, again, taking from Anne's, we all drop off the ocean, hurting and healing together, we are all leaders. And if we can show love and kindness to our fellow human being, we are not only leaders, but we are successful leaders. Hence, I would like to invite Rob Ferguson, the chair of Uniting Against the Far Right, a leader, a man close to my own heart. Actually, Rob was my tutor in college and he helped me whilst I was going through a very, very formative yet very difficult time of my life. And I have so much thanks for him. Thank you so much, Rob. And the floor is all yours, and warmest welcome.
Thank you so much. I really would like to thank the Newham Muslim Forum for organising this important commemoration of the attacks in Christchurch 2 years ago. I'd like to thank my fellow panellists. And in particular, I think we're privileged to have with us, I understand, a family member of one of the victims of that terrible day. I'm conscious this is an interfaith event represented by my fellow panelists. Like my parents, I am a non-religious Jew. However, I'm very aware of the intersections that exist between faith and standing with the oppressed and the victims of hate. In Nazi-occupied Paris, the rector of the Great Mosque helped up to 500 Jews disguise themselves as Muslims during the Nazi occupation. In Albania, a predominantly Muslim country, almost all of its resident Jewish population was saved. In French Algeria, French colonial officials offered Algerians confiscated Jewish property. Muslim clerics openly declared their opposition, and no Arab participated in the scheme. And finally, one of my most abiding childhood associations, or associations from childhood to this day, are the powerful words of a Baptist pastor, Martin Niemöller, actually politically a conservative, whose verse lists all those, as he recollects, for those whom he regretfully did not speak for when they were targeted and when they were attacked. And he had different lists at different times, which I think is appropriate because he was making a point about you always focus on who's the victim of the time. So his first was his own personal. He talked about communists and socialists and trade unionists and of course, finally Jews. And he said that he did not speak for them, and when they came after him, which they did, he was sent to Auschwitz, there was no one left to speak for him. And I think that's his message is what I would like to tap into, I think, because Christchurch shocked the world. The hate, the cold-blooded violence, the relentless ferocity. But also, both in New Zealand and across the world, there was a reaction. Vigils and commemorations, bringing communities together, including here in Newham. Newham, which has the most diverse community in the UK, and repeatedly we've stood together. I think we know that we stand together or we fall separately. That message of Pastor Naeem, I think, runs through to today. There is another aspect I wish to address about the hate, though, and other speakers have touched on it. And that is that hate does not arise out of nowhere. It doesn't just fall from the sky. This was true of the Holocaust, in which members of my mother's family perished. And it was true of Christchurch. In each case, racial hatred, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia was fermented and fueled. And I just want to remind ourselves of the other terrible examples, because I think it's important to think of the challenge that we face. In 2011 in Norway, Andrei Breivik relentlessly gunned down 77 victims at a socialist youth camp, really a sort of Labour Party kind of type of youth camp, victims as young as 14. In 2015, Dylan Roof killed 9 Black people in a church in Charleston. He was a white supremacist. In March 2018, we had Christchurch, which we are remembering today. The same year, in October, Robert Bowers went into the Tree of Life synagogue in Pittsburgh on Shabbat, armed with what he called his Glock family, and gunned down 11 observers. On his social media page, he raged at the fact that the Tree of Life synagogue where that he attacked had participated in the National Refugee Shabbat organized the previous week by the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, which has a history going back over 100 years. And he posted this: "He likes to bring invaders in that kill our people. I can't sit by and watch my people get slaughtered. I'm going in." And when he spoke of invaders, he spoke of migrants and refugees from Central and Latin America. He was speaking about Muslims and refugees from Syria. This is what fueled his hate and the killing. And then in 2019, we had another attack on the Shabbat of Poway synagogue on the last day of Passover. Lives were saved only because the killer's gun jammed. And he boasted that he had committed arson at a nearby mosque the month before, only 15 miles away. Later in 2019, another attack on a Walmart store in El Paso, where the racist Patrick Crusius gunned down 23 Latinos, injuring 23 others. And my final example, although tragically there are others, is of Halle in Germany last year, again on Yom Kippur, where Stefan Balliet live streamed himself in that echo of Christchurch. He couldn't get into the synagogue Fortunately, they'd barricaded the doors. So he targeted Muslims at a nearby Turkish kebab shop. And there is something that links them all, which comes back to my point that the hate does not just fall from the sky. In all their manifestos, they regurgitated these far-right fascist conspiracy theories of white genocide, what's called the Great Replacement, the idea that somehow white Christian society is going to be replaced by migrants, by Muslims, by Black people, and behind it for them is the manipulating power of Jews. And that's why we see these horrific patterns of hate and killing across all these events. And I think it's important to remember that these are individuals in these cases, but I think in a way they're outriders of something very dangerous. We should remember the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, which nearly all these individuals, drew inspiration from, where the slogans were, "You will not replace us." By you, they meant Black, Muslim, Hispanic. And then they added on, "The Jews will not replace us," because in their contorted minds, somehow Jews are bringing in the Blacks and the Muslims and everyone else, and so forth. And I think fascist ideology is premised on the idea of extreme violence and force to suppress all forms of democratic expression and organization, including, of course, faith. And these were their outriders. But we've also seen how in unity we can stop these forces. We can put on the brakes. And that's important because we can't be complacent. We need to continue these efforts because those forces will try to look to make gains out of the pandemic and the crisis, the economic crisis coming out of it. And I wanted to just finish by saying all the efforts, everything that people have discussed, the example of this meeting today is also important. And we also, though, I think have to build a movement when movements such as theirs arise in places of worship, in workplaces, in universities, in trade unions, community organizations. We have to create in our society, in our communities, a culture of anti-racism, of challenging prejudice, and to bring me back to my starting point, a culture of unity. And I'd just like to flag up that on the 20th of March, Stand Up to Racism will be holding a whole wide series of national events on UN Anti-Racism Day, and indeed there will be international events. In Britain, people will be taking the knee across the country at 1 o'clock with a live link up to events taking place around the world. And there'll be a national rally at 5 o'clock with speakers representing an alliance of communities and organizations, both in Britain and internationally. And I'll put a link in the chat if that's all right. Thank you very much again.
Thank you so much, Rob. And to take a phrase from what you said, the hatred does not fall from the sky. It is an idea that is being nurtured, promoted, and excused by politicians and media personalities. And perhaps now more than ever, we need to come together as a community and stand against this. We need to unite because, as Pastor Naeem said, he remarked that if we keep on saying, "Not in my backyard," it is only a matter of time. We do have a surprise speaker. I do believe that the mayor, Rokhsana Fiaz, has joined us. So I do believe that she wants to say a couple of words. The floor is yours.
Assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much, Brother Aman. And your recitation at the start was very, very beautiful, as was Brother Anas's. And Sister Sidra, I just wanted to thank you for your contributions and your presentation and your poem at the end. And Anne, you demonstrated such a powerful evocation of what it is that we can and must be doing in terms of bringing communities together, communities of faith, because ultimately we all want to celebrate and respect our differences, but also embrace the universal truths that we all believe in fundamentally, in terms of treating each other with the respect and humanity that we are taught through our respective scriptures. And I also wanted to thank Sergeant James Howarth for the comfort and reassurance that he's provided to all the members of this Zoom chat with regards to the seriousness through which the police and other authorities take this. And I know that it's been a journey that this country has had to embark on in terms of the seriousness and the depth and the scale of the threat that is Islamophobia. And as Rob has attested, these are things that are deeply rooted in our history and in ideology. And as Anne has said, these are things that percolate and have been percolating for many, many years in the depths of what is known as the dark web, and through its circulation, it becomes part of mainstream discourse and mainstream acceptability, and we need to stand united and together in confronting it and in calling it out, but also, most importantly, to stand together as an alliance in conveying those universal truths that we hold dear as members of humanity, notwithstanding whichever faiths we belong to or not, because ultimately it's a heinous situation that we find ourselves in, a situation that is given credence through both ideology and established politics. And I just really wanted to convey some personal thoughts, because we are 2 years on, and I remember waking up very, very early that morning to the news of the horror that was unfolding, and the fact that this individual was undertaking his hate, but this was being done online and in real time, and the sickness that he demonstrated in his relentless, unrelenting destruction of those individuals, family members, loved ones, was just simply horrific to watch. And as a member of the Muslim community, I was heartbroken, I was tearful. It evoked and triggered. It evoked memories and stories and testimonies of family members and of friends who had expressed to me as I was growing up of the fear that they were beginning to feel for being Muslim, and how that was manifesting in terms of the hate that they were being exposed to. And it includes so many of our communities, our mothers, our sisters, and women in particular, especially those sisters that wear the hijab or the niqab, and they are visible targets that we've got to protect. And I also worry and feel profoundly saddened at the impact that this has had on our younger generations. I remember my, then at the time, he would have been 9-year-old nephew, conveying his sense of fear about what happened at Christchurch, and asking that question of inquiry that any young person would ask when confronted with such horror. Why does someone hate Muslims so much? And we have an important role to play, and I convey this commitment in line with what Anne has said. We remain committed to uniting this community, and together and united we will always stand. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I would like to call to Sister Wedad. Sister Wedad's uncle, I believe, passed away in this event. Thank you so much for making time for us. Sister Wedad and I actually share a common home, We're both from the lovely island called Mauritius, and actually have family also in that same kind of suburb there. So what the only difference between me and Sister Wedad is, qadar, as we say, just sheer blind fate. The situation could have changed. Like I said, I have family there. So Sister Wedad,
Wow.
just to start with, I don't want to obviously make you relive it a little bit too much, but if you could tell us what happened on the day when you heard of it, first of all, what happened exactly?
Assalamu alaikum and good evening to everyone. First of all, thank you for inviting me, and thank you for the beautiful tribute at the start of the Zoom session. Those faces, I've seen them. I've prayed to a couple of people, and sadly they're not with us anymore. Yes, as you correctly said, I lost my uncle 2 years ago in the shooting at one of the mosques in Linwood. And also I want to actually thank everyone that actually prayed for us, myself, my family, and also the other 50 family members and the injured as well, because it's very important to include, to not forget about them. To answer your question, I live in London. I've been living in London for ages, and on the 15th of March 2019, I was off because I was off work because my uncle lived in London before, and it was a habit. On every Friday, we would actually go to Friday prayers. Even if I was at work, on Jummah, I will be praying together with my other brothers and sisters. So I've kept that habit. And I do remember in the morning, I think at 7 o'clock, my phone kept going on and on with like messages, and for some reason I checked my phone and I saw a shooting in New Zealand, and I was like, no, it's probably a joke. It will never happen, because I've been to New Zealand before, and it's a very peaceful country, and I'm very at ease. And then the messages kept coming, and then I was like, no, let me have some peace of mind and just double check if it is a joke or not. So I went on the BBC and I saw Christchurch, and then I was not, I didn't panic at that point. But then when I read the article, there's two mosques in Christchurch. You've got the Al Noor and then the Linwood. And then I started to be a little bit worried, and I saw Linwood, the Linwood Mosque, and then I was very scared. And at that point, I think a couple of videos of the mosque was actually going around, and I did send a message to my uncle, to which he hasn't replied, which is not like him. And obviously it was on WhatsApp, so you can see one tick not delivered and two ticks. So I think I had one tick at that point. So I waited for 5 minutes, because with the time difference, I think there was 13 hours behind compared to London and New Zealand. And I said, maybe he went to work. And then I waited 5 minutes. It was the longest 5 minutes ever. Couldn't get anything. And then I went to wake up my aunt, and I said, can you give me a phone number of someone in New Zealand, because I didn't want to actually break the news. She gave me someone's phone number, and at the same time, I've actually seen something that I shouldn't have seen, and I had to keep it for I think 3 days till it was confirmed that my uncle was one of them. So it was very hard to actually keep probably a secret, but that was my 15th of March, and then I can't remember much about it. It was a blur, because we flew out from London to New Zealand on the day. So that's my memory of 15th of March.
Thank you. How has the last 2 years been for you?
For us as a family, it's been hard, because obviously when the shooting happened, we had to fly down straight away. We had to go through the process of like forensics interview and things like that, go for the burial. And then after a week, the mass shooter, to which I refer to him as it is, or terrorist sometimes, he appeared in court, I think on the 1st of April. We were still in New Zealand. We didn't go. We didn't want to go. But then there was a series of court appearance, because it is that we had to actually show that this guy is actually guilty, and then he was playing with the system. So I think there was court hearing over the last year and a half. There was 7 court hearings. So we spent pretty much all our time flying back and forth between London and New Zealand, attending court hearing. And then, so that was pretty much the last 2 years of my life, going back and forth. And as you're aware, that sentencing happened last August, to which we attended. And I read my victim impact statement in court in front of the terrorist, which is another thing. And then obviously because it had such an impact on, I mean, the impact of killing 51 people. So there is a process, including the police, which actually gets involved, the media and court and everything. So everything had to be done, and obviously it took time because of the court proceedings, but pretty much it sums up the last 2 years.
How was the community? Would you say you've had support from the community? I mean, the general community. We're talking about the human community, not necessarily the Muslim community, but the human community. What was the reaction, and how has it been?
The community at large, Muslims and non-Muslims, they were present, and the priority when we landed on Sunday morning was to find my uncle. So we had support from volunteers. There was loads of volunteers helping. There was a crisis center set up in a college, and people of all faiths, and also the mosque is where my uncle was, is 5 minutes walk. And I do remember clearly the road was actually blocked for further investigation, and then there was thousands of flowers, and people came and paid their respects, and also they were crying. I mean, at that point I couldn't cry, because my priority was to actually find my uncle again. So the community has been very good, even now after 2 years. People still come to the mosque. They are here to help, and they are here to show to pay their respects to everyone. And we've had support from various communities. I mean, I think New Zealand is very diverse in terms. You've got the Maori, you've got people of different faiths, so everyone came together, and they came and paid their respects, and they were here to support us, even on the day of the burials, because the burials was actually done on 3 days. There was so many people, and all very respectful of the Islamic culture, and also very mindful of the magnitude of what happened in New Zealand.
As a person of faith, evidently no one wishes for death, but the way that your uncle, but everybody will die, but the way that your uncle passed away from an Islamic kind of theological perspective, the fact that he passed away in a mosque, the fact that he passed away on Friday, the fact that he passed away, with all of this, we definitely call him a shaheed, and we call him a martyr without any doubt. So I would like to know a little bit more about your uncle. If there's anything, in particular, I would love to hear. And that's what we're here. We're here to celebrate the people's life. And I would love to know more about your uncle. And you're very privileged to be a member of somebody who we can so we've definitely say that, this person, he's definitely, from Islamic perspective, definitely looking down upon us and definitely smiling upon us. And he's definitely in Jannah. So please tell us about your uncle. I would love to know more about
Well, my uncle is, I mean, I still use is because for me, he's peacefully sleeping, and that's how I see it. And so he was very funny. He's very funny, and he was always there for me, even with the time difference in New Zealand. Whenever I will text him, he will text me back. When I would actually go down to New Zealand, we will do stuff. I do remember I was with him 3 months before, so in December of 2018, and I was the last family member to have seen him alive. So he had planned my whole 2 weeks down for, and for example, going for hikes and things like that. He was very adventurous. He was very adventurous and obviously very kind. And he was into very expensive toys, for example, camera gear, which I probably inherited in terms of taking pictures and drone flying and things like that. But that's probably how what I will actually miss the most, because I have no one to talk to in terms of anything. If I've got something going on, I don't know, for example, in work, I know I can call my uncle and he will be, oh, do that or don't do that. He will advise me, like pretty much any uncle or niece relationship will be with anyone.
Thank you so much for that. That was very nice. I do believe that you did say, and this is from you, you said that you were happy to take small questions from members of the audience. So if anybody does have any question, we will take them. But once again, thank you so much. It was an absolute privilege to have you join us. And, we make dua for your uncle, we make dua for everybody else. Not that, we are of lesser than them. They are martyrs, they're shaheed in Islamic theology, and this must bring you definitely great comfort. Is there, and obviously we earlier we did, if anybody has any question, please do send them or just raise your hand, and then I will get to them. But in particular, in regards to kind of the far right, the movement that's going on, and it's happening again, and obviously, and that's absolutely, it comes down to you. But would you like to say anything about that? Do you want to stress kind of the importance of us coming together? Oh, you're muted. Admin, can we unmute her, please?
Yeah, sorry, I've actually muted myself. It's something that I know. I mean, from my experience, it's something that is much. It is in the society, and I didn't know of the impact of it until I was put in this situation. I mean, I'm not too sure how familiar you are with what happened in Christchurch and what the events, what led to it, and how the murderer actually did his research about how to go to the mosque and kill people. I mean, everyone refers to it as a hate crime. It is a hate crime, but I think there should be a better or a higher degree of hate, because no one can actually have that much hate in themselves to do something that they've done. I mean, I've read my statement in court to the guy, and it was eye to eye all the time. It was eye to eye. He was looking at me and I was looking at him, and I couldn't see any remorse. So that in itself, it shows how, I mean, to me, it baffles me how much hate someone has. And it was not only me. In court, there was probably 100 people reading their statements, and he didn't even flinch. So sometimes I do wonder what happened and what went wrong in his life, because if you've got extreme beliefs, it's because, for me, that person is insecure, and it's probably because of fear. There's a fear that someone has gone through their life or their childhood or teenage years, and that's probably how it ascended. I don't know, but we've had people coming over from, as I said, from different faith, and wanting to know more about Islam, which is a very good thing. And we've shared with them our stories, and we've invited them at the mosque. And I think this is one of the ways where we can actually break barriers and invite more people. And it's as I probably it's humans. It's all humans. We're all humans. I mean, I've seen people cry more than we cried, because it has hit them to their core. And yes, it's not something I want to relive, but it's quite sad that we actually have this kind of people in the world. And sadly, it is something that is in the rise, because people are not everyone, but I think it's the fear of ignorance and the fear of the unknown that make people have assumptions and do not believe in the others. Because at the end of the day, we are all humans. Our blood is red. And I do sometimes compare, if someone goes to the hospital and is in need of blood, will it be classified as, oh, it is far right, it's left wing, it's someone's Muslim, Jew, or whatever? No, it's not. I need blood, so give me whatever. So I don't see why some people do not get that in their mind.
Thank you so much, Sister Wedad. We will wrap up now. Apologies, we did go over time, but I'm sure it was worth it. As a final remark, I would like just to remind ourselves what the Salama, the mother of Brother Atta Al-Ayan, he said that the shooter, he made us more faithful to our religion. He made us more determined not to be victimized and to keep going and to even spread the beauty of Islam elsewhere. He wanted to finish us off, but he failed miserably, and a lot of good things have happened. So we'll end on this note, and just before we go, we'll make a collective dua. So first of all, we'll make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He unites all of us. He unites all of us regardless of our faith. He unites all of us against a common issue and a common enemy. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to always make us among those of the people who are always the one who give rather than take. So we are always there for people, and we are not among those who take from people. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to have mercy upon those who have passed away in the Christchurch shooting. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to have mercy on those who have lived on, perhaps even with more difficulty. They have lived on through this, and they're suffering bodily, mentally. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to have mercy upon them. And once more, I would like to thank you all for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure, and hopefully after COVID, we can all meet hopefully next year and do this again, but this time physically, and we can enjoy each other's company and food, as Anne mentioned earlier. Thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.